All right. Hello, everyone. I believe we are rolling live again. Welcome. My name is Tone Vays. I come from the former traditional Wall Street environment. Currently, mostly traveling, educating about Bitcoin. Not at the moment, of course. Everyone's on lockdown. Run a YouTube channel. You can find me as Tone Vays on YouTube, also on Twitter and all the other social media. So, without further ado, I just have a quick presentation about Bitcoin's value proposition and what will take Bitcoin to the next level going forward. But before we get there, let's talk a little bit about the history of Bitcoin. What you see here in the background is the entire price history of Bitcoin up until the last few months. I know we're a lot closer to the $10,000 area right now, but this does give you a good idea of where we came from. Speaking of where we came from, I always like to point to the original white paper publication by Satoshi Nakamoto, where he named it Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. And in the abstract, it describes very, very specifically what the innovation of Bitcoin is. I'll just read it to you real quick. Digital signatures provide part of the solution, but the main benefits are lost if a trusted third party is still required to prevent double spending. We propose a solution to the double spending problem using peer-to-peer networks. The network timestamps transactions by hashing them into an ongoing chain of hash-based proof of work, forming a record that cannot be changed without redoing the proof of work. You can see the word proof of work mentioned many times. Also, the solution to double spending, which proof of work was. What isn't mentioned in the white paper at all is the word blockchain. And we'll get to that later on, perhaps. But the word blockchain was never important to Satoshi. It was always Bitcoin. And he realized the application for Bitcoin real quick. And that application was going to be money. Used several references to do this, including Adam Back's Hashcash, which Adam Back is currently the CEO of a company, Blockstream, helping code Bitcoin itself. So Bitcoin pretty much stayed irrelevant and out of the public eye for the first 2 years until one magic day, WikiLeaks got banned from all other forms of payment networks like Visa, MasterCard, PayPal. Those that aren't familiar with WikiLeaks, it was a website that was sharing government documents that the government did not appreciate. One of the Bitcoin developers at the time, named Amir Taki, suggested that WikiLeaks should start using Bitcoin to continue funding its operation. Satoshi at the time disagreed. He thought that it would bring unnecessary attention to Bitcoin as the network was still pretty fragile. This was back in December of 2010, and I heard about Bitcoin for the first time back then. Really wish I bought some, but we can't go back in history. WikiLeaks did not accept Bitcoin for donations, and Bitcoin stayed under the radar until early February 2011 when Silk Road launched. The launch of Silk Road created the same use case that WikiLeaks was going to create, and that use case is censorship-resistant value transfer. It is a very, very important use case, though for me personally, not the most important use case for Bitcoin. But the Silk Road case certainly created demand for Bitcoin, driving the price higher. But it wasn't Silk Road alone that created that giant bubble in 2011. That came with the assistance of Senator Chuck Schumer out of New York City, who went on TV very irate about what is happening in the digital universe. And in approximately 35 seconds, he managed, you can see by the timestamp in the video, he managed to educate the world on Bitcoin, Silk Road, and the Tor browser all at the same time. And the amount of traffic hitting Silk Road to buy products that the government doesn't approve of went through the roof, thanks to the New York Senator Chuck Schumer. Now, that was the first big bubble in Bitcoin, and the price, of course, crashed pretty heavily. Still the biggest bubble and still the biggest price crash, where we crashed 95 to 98% from $30 all the way down to $2. 2012 was a somewhat uneventful year, but 2013, things really started to pop again. And in 2013, I had rediscovered Bitcoin, but now it was a lot more interesting and a lot more important to me. And that was thanks to a little European country called Cyprus. In April and starting in March of 2013, Cyprus shut down all of its banks. And they ended up taxing all accounts in the bank over 100,000 euros. So they went ahead and confiscated over 50,000, almost 50,000 euros from an account that say held 200,000 euros. They ended up taking 50% of everything above 100,000. And this showed me the true value of Bitcoin and its most important property being unconfiscatable. Bitcoin is the first asset in human history that we can claim is unconfiscatable as long as nobody knows you have it. This property of being unconfiscatable is extremely important. Here's a statistic out of the US from 2014. I really need to find an update, but this statistic is not easy to get, where it was analyzed that civil asset forfeiture confiscated more money from people than burglars. So that means you had a higher probability of being robbed by law enforcement and someone with a badge than by a criminal stealing it from you. And this is, once again, on full display, the property of being unconfiscatable. I happen to own the domain unconfiscatable.com because it's such an important property. And I now run a conference in Las Vegas called Unconfiscatable, just based on how important that word is. Of course, your Bitcoin assets are only as unconfiscatable as your ability to protect it from being stolen. Here's an example. When Silk Road eventually got shut down, the government was able to confiscate 144,000 coins from Silk Road simply because they were not properly protected. Now, we had a much bigger issue with theft of Bitcoins, and that, of course, goes to Mt. Gox, where Mt. Gox was hacked for hundreds of thousands of Bitcoins. And when Mt. Gox eventually went down, Mark Karpeles ended up going to prison for it. I personally don't blame Mark Karpeles. He was always at a disadvantage. Some emails going back and forth between Mark Karpeles and a man named Jeb McCaleb, who was actually the creator of Mt. Gox, and before Mark Karpeles bought it from him. And after Mark Karpeles bought it, Mark realized that 80,000 Bitcoin was missing. And he questioned Jeb about it and did not get very good replies. In addition, a few months after Mark Karpeles bought it, there is this hack of the servers, and more Bitcoin was stolen. The initial speculation was that the hack came through one of Jeb McCaleb's old laptops, which still had administrative privileges. And of course, we had our very first bubble, and that bubble lasted for quite a while. We had a very long bear market in 2014 and 15 until eventually breaking out of it in 2016. The end of that bear market was very, very interesting, and I believe it's pretty similar to today. I was watching the Greek banking shutdown in 2015, 2 years after Cyprus, and I could not be any more bullish on Bitcoin as I was watching what was unfolding in Greece, and the similar situation is, of course, happening again today. Here are some more details on Greece. When Greek banks shut down, people did not have access to their own money in the bank. They were limited to only 60 euros per day out of an ATM machine, and then a few weeks later, they were allowed 420 euros for the entire week. And everyone, so what happens when you tell people you can withdraw 420 euros, but you can only do it once for that week? Well, everyone will run to the ATM machine. And this is a very telling picture. And there's not much difference between this picture and some of the pictures throughout history. In the upper right-hand corner, you see New York City in 1907, one of the biggest financial panics the US has ever seen. The middle pictures are Weimar Germany in the 1920s, where it made more sense to burn that money for heat than spending it anywhere else. Your money all of a sudden had another utility. And here are some pictures out of the US when gold was confiscated in 1934 during the Great Depression and its financial crisis. More recent picture, this is Zimbabwe in 2007 when they went through their hyperinflation. What do all of these pictures have in common? Well, it's government mismanagement of money and people's attempt to get out of the banking system. Since gold was mentioned earlier, let's talk about the third key property of Bitcoin, and that is its finite supply. The government in the US was able to confiscate gold in 1933 with a very scary order calling for up to $10,000 fine, which was actually a lot of money back then, or a 10-year prison sentence. And gold was confiscated. Most of the gold was sitting at the banks, so it was pretty easy to confiscate. Now, this property of Bitcoin being hard money and the need to even have hard money and how Bitcoin is even better than gold could not have been explained better than in the book, The Bitcoin Standard. It is right on the shelf behind me, and the man, Saifedean Ammous, that wrote it, did an excellent job. Not going to read all the parts from that book. Let's just read a couple. Hard money, by taking the question of supply out of the hands of governments and their economists, would force everyone to be productive to society instead of seeking to get rich through the fool's errand of monetary manipulation. International economic summits are convened where world leaders try to negotiate each other's acceptable currency devaluation, making the value of the currency an issue of geopolitical importance. For every other money, as its value rises, those who can produce it will start producing more of it, whether it's rice stones, seashells, silver, gold, copper, or government money. Everyone will have an incentive to try to produce more. Bitcoin is the hardest money ever invented. Growth in its value cannot possibly increase its supply. It can only make the network more secure and immune to attack. And it makes Bitcoin fundamentally different than every other money. And this brings the idea that hard money is badly needed, and we are watching it unfold with the ridiculous printing of new money into the ecosystem with this recent virus and economic shutdown. So let's review real quick. How does Bitcoin compete today with the global financial sector? Well, it provides three properties and nothing else does. Unconfiscatability, censorship-resistant value transfer, let's put it that way, and it's uninflatable. It's hard money. It is like gold, but unlike gold, you can actually send Bitcoin to people easily and fairly cheap, especially relative to sending Bitcoin all around. Now, Satoshi knew how valuable that property was. And that's why he wrote in 2010, the nature of Bitcoin is such that once version 0.1 was released, the core design was set in stone for the rest of its lifetime. The immutability is not a feature of the Bitcoin software, as Saifedean writes, which is trivial to change with anyone with coding skills, but rather is grounded in the economics of the currency and network and stems from the difficulty of getting every member of the network to adopt the same change to the software. And not understanding that principle is how we get Bcash and many of the other shitcoins. Here are a bunch of use cases for Bitcoin that I wrote a long time ago, but we will move on and we'll just simply focus on the last one. Number 7, most important, the transferring of value cross borders. It's your value and you should have the right to take it anywhere. So we already discussed the three parts where Bitcoin competes really well. Where does Bitcoin still struggle a little bit? And I've been giving this presentation for years now, but Bitcoin is still struggling. Scalability. is not as big of an issue as it was years ago, but it is a little bit of an issue. We are watching once again as transactions are getting slow and a little bit more expensive than they were before. But it's getting better. As more people use SegWit, as more people use Lightning, that's going to get better. And that goes into the scalability feature. Now, Bitcoin also doesn't compete very well on privacy, but privacy is getting much better. Once the next soft fork and Schnorr signatures come in, it's going to get much better. There's also other proposals to make Bitcoin a lot more private. So how else is Bitcoin struggling competing? Well, the price volatility. These are the things. So scalability, fungibility, privacy, that's all getting better. Price volatility will get better over time, but not yet. Bitcoin is still pretty volatile, and though the markets have been more so lately, but Bitcoin continues to be volatile, so it'll just take a lot more value on chain. This volatility is coming down over time, so hopefully one of these days, this volatility of Bitcoin price will be lower than many of the other currencies. Though speaking of volatility of other currencies, this is an enormous list of hyperinflation in the 20th century. We're now in the 21st. So in the 20th century, here is a massive list of hyperinflations as defined by a 50% or greater devaluation of your currency in a single month, or a 20% devaluation of your currency or appreciation, but this is mostly hyperinflation list, within a couple of days. So that's pretty much what hyperinflation is. I have to finish this list. The book where I got this from was written in 2008, and therefore the last hyperinflation listed was Zimbabwe. But I set out and found all other ones up to 2018, and there's still been plenty, including Ukraine, Russia, and we're seeing what is happening in Venezuela. Here's the Venezuelan exchange rate, which is just out of control. Zimbabwe round 2 in 2017, once again, hit hyperinflation. Hyperinflation is generally a political event. We're not going to get into it on this presentation. I don't see any hyperinflation coming to the US dollar. In fact, I see more deflation on the horizon. Now, developed nations aren't immune to insane price volatility of their currency. Here is the British pound moving over 10% in a single day during the Brexit crisis. And here is the Swiss franc moving 30% on a single day when they lost their peg to the euro. And this wasn't decades ago, guys. This was, I believe this was around 2015, 16, maybe a little bit earlier. But that was within the last 10 years when they put in that peg. That wasn't that long ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Okay. And of course, the biggest problem Bitcoin has is Bitcoin constantly gets hacked. Now, Bitcoin doesn't actually get hacked. People's wallets with Bitcoin in them get hacked. And we are getting better with hardware wallets as a solution, but we're not there yet for the average consumer to understand. All right, I got about 5 more minutes. So let's finish up by talking about what can take Bitcoin to the next level. And I think the biggest catalyst for Bitcoin to actually go to moon and say go up 10x in a single week or month is the breakup of the European common currency. I think that is the biggest catalyst. Italy is always on the brink of having a total banking crisis. Greece almost left the Eurozone. So lots of things can happen there. A breakup of the euro will make people look for a safe haven currency, and Bitcoin would probably be their best bet. My next big catalyst is the elimination of cash. Harvard Business Review wrote a great article talking about why governments want to eliminate cash. There are 3 main reasons. One, you eliminate a run on the bank. All those pictures of people running to ATM machines will no longer exist if there is no bank and no ATMs to withdraw from. Governments can set negative interest rate policy if there's no cash, because people are not able to get out of the system, and they can penalize you for holding money in the bank. And the biggest reason, of course, every single government thinks every one of their citizens is a tax evader, and therefore they think they will eliminate tax evasion if they simply eliminate cash. Now, India does have one of the biggest, I guess, gaps in its GDP due to the cash economy, estimated between 30 and 44%. It costs a lot more money for some countries than others to maintain a cash economy. Europe is pretty expensive. Mexico, China, India, a lot of resources. Canada is New Zealand, very cheap to maintain a cash economy. Yellow is kind of in between. We also have a chart showing you which countries are technologically ready to eliminate that cash. Germany, Belgium, France are technologically ready and would benefit greatly. India would benefit the best. Unfortunately, they are not technologically ready to eliminate cash, which is kind of strange because most of our tech support is now out of India, but they are not yet technologically ready to eliminate cash. A lot of the laws are starting to get people frustrated. If you are in France, you cannot buy anything with 1,000 euros in cash without providing full know your customer, KYC information. A lot of the US, out of a state, Louisiana, does not allow you to buy secondhand goods with cash. I don't know how this law is being enforced, but if you want to sell that bicycle for $20, you better take a check or have a credit card machine. Germany is trying to eliminate its collector market by making you register any coin, any piece of art, pretty much anything of value over 100 euros, because people will hide in these assets. So Europe wants to make sure that that doesn't happen. So these are completely insane catalysts that will drive it to the next level. Here's one of the best tweets that will tell you why it's going to be Bitcoin and nothing else. Giacomo, great job, man. So he defined Bitcoin maximalist. I like to think of myself as a shitcoin minimalist, where he says Bitcoin maximalism, also known as moderate common sense, where Bitcoin could maybe succeed. It is in the middle of the spectrum, because here are your two extremes. You have the no-coiner, like a Nouriel Roubini, that thinks not even Bitcoin can succeed. And then you have the multi-coiner, like a Vitalik Buterin, that believes that Bitcoin wasn't that innovative, and my clone of Bitcoin is better. My last slide, I have a 40-minute presentation on this slide alone, and it talks about how I categorize all of these shitcoins, and I explain why all of them are pretty much useless, and it's going to be Bitcoin. I will just mention once again, proof of work is the innovation, not blockchain. Blockchain was a meaningless word in Satoshi's comment to a line of code. Bitcoin did not solve people's problems, so they made up this concept of a blockchain. And some of the people that have been working on blockchain have been doing it for quite a while. I don't have time to read this slide. Please pause. But it's basically Peter Todd trying to create proof of work in 2001 to solve the same problem. Unfortunately, he was only 15 years old and couldn't quite get the answer. Satoshi got it done a few years later. All right. Good try, though, Peter. Mining is not a waste of electricity, and we're going to skip these as well. This is me starting that next presentation, but you will have to find it online. It's called Bitcoin. There will be only one. All right, guys, thank you so much. This took about 25 minutes. I'm sure you have a lot of questions. I already see them in the chat. Let me go through your questions real quick, and I will end on that. I'll also cut screen share. If you want to find me, you can go over to tomevays.com, but check me out on YouTube, and I have a presence on Twitter as well, Instagram less so. All right, let me end screen share. And you should be able to see me on camera. Perfect. All right. Let me pull this up here. And let's go through some of your questions. Whoa, there's a lot. Okay, let's see what we got. What are your thoughts on oil and USO stock right now? I think oil has gone up quite a bit. I think oil is getting ready to top sometime later this week or next week. It's gone from the negative prices all the way up to $30-something. I always thought oil was overpriced. I was looking for a sub $20 price of oil. I hit for years now, finally reached that target. I think oil is going to pull back. I think USO was not running their contract very well, but they have done changes. Now, at the moment, I wouldn't be going long oil. I'm not going to say that I would short it, but if I was long oil, I would be looking to take my profit sometime this week. Why did that big drop happen a couple of months ago in Bitcoin? So I still believe Bitcoin is correlated with the stock market. The stock market started to crash with COVID, and people took their money out of a lot of assets. They wanted to have cash. And crashes don't happen if a catalyst occurred. Crashes can happen because no one wants to buy at that moment in time thinking that it's going down. And it just crashes. I don't believe it was a conspiracy. And Bitcoin was always overpriced. I was looking for lower prices. I don't have an explanation for you, and you'll probably never get one. But it fell. The next day, I became a bull. I was a bear on the price for years, 2 years. And I finally became a bull the day after the big crash in March. Next. What is your advice for Bitcoin beginners? Bitcoin beginners, learn. Please watch and listen to some good podcasts. Please watch the Vays channel. Jimmy Song has a YouTube channel. Andreas Antonopoulos has a good YouTube channel. It also depends if you're more of a finance person or a tech person. Bitcoin is the ultimate financial technology. So if you're more technologically inclined, please go and listen to Block Digest, a very good podcast. Also, Noted. That one is not as technical. Also a great podcast, Noted. Just learn and understand Bitcoin. Stay away from shit. That's my advice for beginners. And protect your keys on a hardware wallet. Tone, can you explain TD sequential? No, definitely not on this channel. I only have a few more minutes. It is a trading system initially popularized by Tom DeMark. And you want to learn it. Lots of resources on the web to learn how to trade these indicators. And every now and then, I've taught how I trade these indicators. But yeah, I can't explain it on this channel. Sorry. Do you support fiat? I don't know if I support fiat. I certainly use fiat. Fiat is very useful. Fiat is the currency we all use to buy our goods and services. So I don't support the insane money printing that's going on, but I certainly support the fact that we have a functioning financial system, at least in the US and most developed countries. Because a well-designed financial system that's transparent with checks and balances is important for a high-functioning society. Otherwise, it doesn't really work. What do you think of Bitcoin right now? Right now, I am slightly more bullish than bearish on Bitcoin, though even saying that is tricky. We are sitting right at a resistance level. And while a few days ago, I was pretty confident this resistance level will not hold and will break, I'm starting to consider breakout. Once we go above 10,000, I can see us reaching 12,000 fairly quickly. So I am a bull. I was anticipating a short-term top around this $10,000 area, but as we continue to stay in this area for days and weeks, I now become more bullish, looking for a breakout. What makes hash rate so important to price? It doesn't make hash rate important to price. Price drives hash rate. The higher the price, the more profitable your mining will be, the more hash rate there will be. So to me, hash rate has always followed price, and hash rate provides security to the network. So obviously, the higher the price of Bitcoin, the higher your hash rate is going to be. Hey, Tone, always looking forward to your talk. Thank you so much. Are you a stock to flow believer? There's nothing to really believe. I mean, stock to flow is something that popularized by Saifedean in the book, The Bitcoin Standard. And stock to flow is important. Bitcoin has the lowest stock to flow. Am I a believer of extrapolating where the price of Bitcoin is going to be next week because of stock to flow? I'm not. Do I believe that over the long term, stock to flow increases the price of Bitcoin? Of course. But I think it's very difficult. It's good as a dollar cost average strategy, but it's not good for short or even intermediate term trading. Long-term trading, sure. Position trading, sure. So it's not believing or not believing. It's about how useful is it to you. And I knew Bitcoin was going to go up for multiple reasons before I even knew the concept of stock to flow. So it's kind of like, Tone, do you believe in gravity? Well, yeah, I do. But how does that change anything? Whether we know the name gravity, but we know what gravity is. It's just that someone was eventually able to explain it. But even if no one explained gravity, of course I believe in gravity. I'm walking around, and when I, don't watch where I'm going, I'm gonna fall down a cliff, and that's gravity. I don't have to believe in it. There's nothing to believe. It's just something that's there. Okay, next. What's your thoughts on CBDC? I'm not sure what CBDC is. Is that you have to tell me what CBDC stands for. I'm sure it's some kind of a stable coin, and I don't want to get into stable coin. Oh my God, you guys have like 20 questions. I'm going to skip CBDC because I would need to figure out what that is first, and I don't feel like Googling. Will there be a big decline in Bitcoin in the near future? I mean, it's hard to say. Look, if Bitcoin goes exponential again, there'll be a big decline. If we go from 10,000 to 30,000 this summer, there's going to be a huge decline. But if we go slow and steady, if by the end of the summer we're at 12,000, and by the end of the year we're at 15,000, there's probably not going to be that much of a decline. But if we're at 15,000 tomorrow, yeah, there's going to be a crash then after. So it really depends on how and when it continues to rise. What happens at your conference? Well, it depends on the conference. I have 3 conferences. We have Unconfiscatable in Las Vegas, which is a general Bitcoin conference. We have a mining panel. We have a financial panel, a legal panel, like a standard conference, but only Bitcoiners. There's not going to be any scammers. There's also a poker tournament. We have Understanding Bitcoin, where we try to educate the Bitcoin users, not noobs, but Bitcoiners, on how to use the advanced features of Bitcoin, like Lightning, like running your own node, privacy transactions. So we teach people how to use Bitcoin better. And of course, the ultimate enjoyable educational vacation, the Financial Summit, is taking place in Bali. That one is great. It's absolutely incredible. If you're a trader, if you're running a fund in this space, or not even in this space, in traditional space too, you want to be there. It's an amazing event. That's going to take place in November, assuming lockdown will be fully over by then. Okay, next. Would you like to work? Wait, what? Would like to work with you and give more information about Bitcoin to Japan crypto community. Guys, I'm so looking forward to coming to Japan. I have never been to Japan. I wanted to come to Japan this summer. Unfortunately, with COVID, couldn't make it out there. I would love to go to Japan in October, right before the Financial Summit, the first week of November. If travel opens up, I would love to go to Japan And if you watch my channel, if you hear me out to Japan, please reach out. I would love to do some meetups and stuff. Hello, Tone. Do you like Bitcoin can be safe haven currency? Yes. I do think Bitcoin can be a safe haven currency. It has been for me for many years. Bitcoin is always a safe haven because it's the only asset that is unconfiscatable. All right. What is the reason that forbidden BTC goes to the next level? I think I already answered that during the presentation. What do you think ICO, also STO? Guys, I don't think of IEO. I don't even know what I don't even know what IEO is. Initial exchange offering, STO. They're all the same things, guys. It's can you handle regulation? I don't believe in utility tokens. I think they're all bullshit. They're just making up a way to print their own money. How can Bitcoin fight government? Well, it already is. It's a censorship resist. I'm not wearing the shirt today. I have a shirt that says censorship, unconfiscatable, censorship resistant store of value. It's Bitcoin's been fighting since 2009, and it will continue to do so. Thanks for the great presentation. No, thank you for watching. What application do you think the industry needs for Bitcoin can be used for larger people like our parents, for older people like our parents and grandparents? Guys, I'm sorry to have to say this. Bitcoin may not be for your grandparents. If your grandparents don't use email, Bitcoin is not for them. I'm sorry, it's not for them. Try to your effort is better spent educating kids how to use Bitcoin than educating your grandparents. Do you think it's good to send my personal Bitcoin to some of the Bitcoin here fund? No, it's never good. It's terrible. What's the risk? Oh, you're gonna get scammed. Guys, please do not give your Bitcoin to anyone. Don't even tell people you have it. Can we end it here? Yes, we can. Thank you so much. Guys, thank you for watching. I would love to come out to Japan. I would love to go out back to Korea as well. I've been to Korea before. I haven't been to Japan before. I want to go to both countries. I would love to do that sometime in October, hopefully. If not, it will have to be the year after. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation. And come check me out on my YouTube channel, where we do this all the time. Just find Tone Vays on YouTube. Check out the conferences as well. Thank you, guys, and I will hopefully answer more questions on my own YouTube channel. Bye, guys.